The chamber of the Galactic Council had never been so quiet. Hundreds of representatives, creatures of light, chitin, metal, and flesh, sat in their assigned tiers, their attention fixed on the central dais. The air itself seemed to vibrate with tension, as if the station understood the weight of what was about to happen. At the center, the High Arbiter rose. After extensive deliberation, the Arbiter began, their voice translated instantly into 1,000 languages. The Council has reached a unanimous decision regarding the species-designated humanity of soul. A ripple moved through the chamber. Some leaned forward. Others stiffened. Humanity, the Arbiter continued, has demonstrated a consistent pattern of unpredictable behavior, rapid technological escalation, and a concerning capacity for violence under provocation. Though they have adhered to Council law, their historical record suggests a latent threat to galactic stability. A pause, long enough to feel deliberate. Therefore, it is the judgment of this Council that preemptive action is required. The words landed like a hammer. We hereby authorize a full-scale military campaign against humanity. Silence followed. Not shock. No, most of them had expected this outcome. Humanity had always made them uneasy, too adaptable, too resilient, too quiet. But far away, in a small blue-lit room on a backwater human station orbiting Saturn, someone laughed. It wasn't loud. It wasn't hysterical. It was soft, relieved. Elena Voss leaned back in her chair, eyes fixed on the flickering screen as the Council's declaration replayed. Her dark hair was tied loosely behind her head, her expression calm in a way that felt wrong given the circumstances. Around her, the command center buzzed into chaos. Confirm that transmission. Is this verified? Get Fleet Command on the line, now. Voices overlapped, sharp with panic. Officers rushed between stations. Alerts began flashing across every display. Across Earth and its colonies, billions would be seeing the same message. War, declared not by humanity, but on it. Elena, someone snapped, stepping beside her. Commander Hale, his face pale, his hands trembling just slightly. You're seeing this, right? Tell me this is some kind of bluff. She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she exhaled. Slow. Steady. Then she smiled. Not a bluff, she said quietly. Hale stared at her. They just declared war on us. I know. They outnumber us 100 to 1. I know. They think we're a threat. At that, her smile widened, just a fraction. They're right. Hale took a step back, unsettled. What the hell is wrong with you? Elena turned her chair, finally meeting his gaze. There was no fear in her eyes. No anger. Just something deeper. Older. 12 generations, she said. That's how long we've been holding back. Ever since first contact, we've bent over backwards to play nice, to prove we're not what our history says we are. Hale frowned. Because our history is exactly why they're afraid. Yes, Elena agreed. And because of that, we buried everything that made us dangerous. She gestured vaguely toward the stars beyond the station's reinforced glass. Our doctrines, our real capabilities, the things we swore we'd never use again. Another alert blared. Louder this time. Urgent. Enemy fleet signatures detected at the edge of the system. The room froze. Hale looked back at the screens, then at Elena. This is it, he whispered. Elena stood. For the first time, there was something unmistakable in her expression. Not fear, not panic. Relief. At last, she said softly, a reason. And across human space, something long silent began to stir. Long before the Council ever spoke the word war, humanity had already decided it would never be the one to start it again. That decision had cost them everything. It began centuries ago, before the stars, before the alliances, when humanity had nearly destroyed itself. Nations had burned, skies had turned to ash, and entire populations had vanished in the span of hours. The scars of those wars were not just etched into history books, but into culture, into instinct, into the very way humans thought. When first contact finally came, humanity was not at its strongest. It was at its most careful. The galaxy saw a species that negotiated before it fought, that de-escalated when provoked, that signed treaties it didn't need to sign. Humans gave up weapons programs, dismantled fleets, and accepted restrictions no other species would tolerate. To the Council, it was reassuring. To humanity, it was necessary, because buried beneath that restraint was something the rest of the galaxy could never truly understand. Memory, not just of victory, but of what victory cost. Elena Voss stood alone now, the chaos of the command center sealed behind reinforced doors. The corridor outside was dim, lit only by emergency strips glowing along the floor. Her footsteps echoed softly as she walked, each one deliberate. She reached a biometric lock at the end of the hall. For a moment she hesitated, not out of doubt but reverence. Then she placed her hand against the panel. Authorization. Voss. Elena. Level Omega. The system paused. Confirm intent. Elena closed her eyes briefly. Release protocol. A beat. Then, protocol. Last light acknowledged. The door slid open. Deep beneath the station, systems that had not been active for over a century flickered to life. Vaults unlocked. Circuits warmed. Ancient code, untouched, unaltered, began executing exactly as it had been written generations ago. Humanity's greatest secret was not a weapon. It was a promise. A promise that if war ever came again, truly came, they would not hesitate. Across Sol, hidden networks awakened. On Mars, long-abandoned shipyards powered on, their skeletal frames suddenly alive with motion as automated systems resumed construction mid-process, as if no time had passed at all. In the asteroid belt, mining colonies shifted configuration, their industrial arms retooling from extraction to fabrication in minutes. Around Jupiter, something massive moved in the dark, structures once mistaken for inert debris now aligning with silent precision. And on Earth, governments didn't argue. They didn't debate. They didn't stall. Because this had already been decided. Not by leaders, but by history. Back in the corridor, Elena stepped into the vault. Inside, there was no grand weapon waiting for her. No glowing superstructure or doomsday device. Just a single terminal. Old. Simple. Unassuming. She approached it slowly, almost respectfully, and placed her hand on its surface. The screen flickered on. "Do you understand the consequences?" She almost laughed. "I'm one of the consequences," she murmured. A pause. Then the final prompt appeared. "Shall humanity remember?" For a long moment, Elena said nothing. In that silence lived centuries of restraint, of swallowed anger, of carefully chosen peace, of pretending to be smaller than they were. Her finger hovered over the confirmation. Then, yes. The response was immediate. Across every human system, something changed. Restrictions lifted. Limiters gone. Safeguards disabled. Not recklessly, not chaotically, but precisely, deliberately, and all at once. In the Council's distant observation arrays, analysts began to notice anomalies. Energy readings spiking. Unknown signatures appearing. Human vessels, once modest, predictable, now registering as something else entirely. One observer, a veteran of 3 galactic conflicts, leaned closer to his console. His voice trembled. That's not possible. Because the Council had studied humanity. They had catalogued its behavior, measured its responses, predicted its limits. But they had only ever seen what humanity allowed them to see. They had mistaken restraint for weakness. They had mistaken peace for incapability. They had mistaken silence for absence. And now, for the first time, humanity was about to correct them. The first thing the Council noticed was the timing. Humanity did not scramble. It did not fracture into conflicting commands or desperate signals. There were no overlapping broadcasts, no visible confusion, no hesitation. There was only alignment. Across every monitored system, human activity shifted in perfect synchrony, as if an invisible hand had drawn a single line through their entire civilization, and everything simply followed it. On Mars, the dormant shipyards did not restart. They resumed. Massive skeletal frames, frozen mid-construction for over a century, came alive with terrifying precision. Drones swarmed like metal insects, welding, assembling, finishing designs that had been waiting patiently for this exact moment. Hull plating slid into place. Weapon systems unfolded from concealed compartments. Engines, far larger than anything previously registered, ignited with a low, controlled hum. Ships that should have taken decades to build were completed in hours. In the asteroid belt, the transformation was even more dramatic. Mining rigs split apart, reconfiguring themselves into fabrication clusters. Entire asteroids were carved open, not for resources, but for space. From within them emerged structures the Council had never catalogued. Not civilian, not exploratory, military, and not the kind they recognized. Near Jupiter, the darkness itself seemed to move. What had long been dismissed as inert debris fields suddenly shifted formation. Thousands of objects, too uniform to be natural, too still to have drawn attention before, aligned in precise geometric patterns. Then they powered on. One by one, colossal war platforms unfolded, their silhouettes eclipsing the gas giant storms. Energy signatures spiked beyond anything the Council had ever recorded from human technology. These were not ships. They were fortresses, and they had been hiding in plain sight. Back on the Saturn station, Elena Voss stood once again in the command center. But now, the chaos was gone. In its place was something far more unsettling. Order. Every officer moved with purpose. No raised voices. No frantic gestures. Commands were issued clearly, acknowledged instantly, executed without delay. Hale stood beside her, staring at the central display. "I don't understand," he said quietly. "We didn't have this. We couldn't have. Not without anyone noticing." Elena didn't look at him. "We've always had it." "That's impossible. The Council monitors everything." "They would have." "They monitor what we show them," she interrupted gently. Hale swallowed. On the screen, a new fleet designation appeared. Sole Defense Grid, active. Then another. Deep Reserve Fleets, deploying. And another. Omega-level systems, online. His voice dropped to a whisper. "How long?" Elena finally turned to him. "How long have we been preparing?" she repeated. She considered the question for a moment. Since the last time we forgot what we were capable of. Across human space, the awakening machine, though no one had ever officially called it that, was functioning exactly as designed. It wasn't a single system. It wasn't even a network. It was a philosophy, embedded into infrastructure, into governance, into the very fabric of civilization. A way to ensure that if the day ever came, humanity wouldn't need to decide what to do, because it had already decided. At the edge of the solar system, the first Council fleet arrived. Thousands of ships dropped from faster-than-light travel in tight formation, their weapons already primed. To them, this was the beginning of a swift and decisive campaign, a necessary correction, a preemptive victory. They expected disarray. They expected resistance. They did not expect what they found. Waiting for them, silent, motionless, was a formation of human vessels, not scattered, not defensive, positioned perfectly. The lead council commander frowned as new data streamed across his display. Energy readings, too high. Hull compositions, unknown. Weapon systems, unidentified. He felt something unfamiliar tighten in his chest. Doubt. Back on the station, Hale stared at the live feed. "They're not attacking," he said. "No," Elena replied softly. "They're just waiting." This time, when she smiled, there was no warmth in it. "No," she said again. "They're ready." And for the first time since the Council had declared war, humanity made its opening move without firing a single shot. The Council fleet opened fire first. They had to. Protocol demanded it. Doctrine required overwhelming force at the outset, shock, awe, and immediate dominance. Against any other species, it worked flawlessly. Fleets shattered. Defenses collapsed. Wars ended before they truly began. So when the human formation did not advance, did not retreat, did not even broadcast a warning, the Council struck. Thousands of weapons discharged in perfect unison. Lances of coherent light carved through the darkness. Kinetic rounds accelerated to relativistic speeds. Plasma waves rippled outward, distorting space as they surged toward the waiting human line. It was beautiful. It was devastating. It was, by every known measure, unstoppable. And then it stopped. Not with an explosion. Not with a counterblast. It simply failed. The first wave of fire reached the human formation and vanished. No impact. No debris. No shield flare. Just absence. On the Council flagship, silence replaced confidence. "Report," the commander snapped. "Direct hits confirmed," an officer replied, voice strained. "But no damage detected." "That's impossible." "I agree, Commander." The human fleet had not moved. Then, slowly, something changed. A ripple passed through their formation, not physical, but perceptible, as if space itself adjusted around them. New readings flooded Council sensors. Fields, not shields. Something deeper. Back on the Saturn station, Hale gripped the edge of the console. "What did we just do?" he whispered. Elena watched the feed, her expression steady. "We stopped pretending." The second volley came faster, more concentrated, more aggressive. This time, the Council targeted specific vessels, adjusting frequencies, altering vectors, compensating for whatever anomaly they thought they had encountered. Again, the barrage struck. Again, nothing. Then humanity answered, not with a roar, but with precision. One human ship moved. Just one. It slid forward from the formation, its motion smooth, almost effortless. No visible thrusters. No flare of propulsion. It simply was in a new position. Targeting systems across the Council fleet locked onto it instantly. "Fire!" the commander ordered. Weapons discharged. The ship remained untouched. "Return fire," Elena said quietly. Hale blinked. "That's it. Just one ship. That's all it takes." From the human vessel, a single beam lanced outward. No dramatic charge. No visible build-up. Just a line of light, thin, precise, absolute. It crossed the distance between fleets in an instant, and where it touched a Council cruiser, the ship came apart. Not exploded. Not shattered. It simply separated. Cleanly. Silently. Completely. The battlefield froze. Even in the vacuum of space, the absence of sound felt deafening. On the Council flagship, alarms screamed. Structural failure across multiple decks. Containment loss. Command vessel breaking apart. The commander stared at the display as one of his largest warships ceased to exist as a unified object. "What was that?" he whispered. No one answered. Because they didn't know. The human ship returned to its position. The formation held. Still silent. Still waiting. Hale's voice shook. We just destroyed one of their capital ships." Elena shook her head slightly. "No," she said. "We demonstrated." Across the Council fleet, hesitation spread. Ships adjusted formation. Weapons recalibrated. But something had changed. The certainty was gone. For the first time in recorded galactic history, the Council was unsure. A transmission request appeared on every human screen. Origin, Council flagship. Priority, absolute. Hale looked at Elena. "They want to talk." She considered it for a moment, then nodded. "Put them through." The commander's image flickered into view, composed but strained. "You will cease hostilities immediately," he said, his voice tight with controlled urgency. "This conflict can still be contained." Elena stepped forward. "No," she said calmly. "You declared war." A pause. Then, softer. "We're just answering." Behind her, the human fleet shifted. Not advancing. Not retreating. But preparing. And this time, there would be more than one answer. The Council had never known fear like this. Not in the long history of its expansion. Not in the countless wars it had fought, and won, with cold efficiency. Conflict, to them, had always been a matter of calculation, of advantage, of inevitability. But this was something else. Across the battlefield, their fleet held position, but barely. Formations once perfect now showed fractures. Ships drifted a little too far apart. Targeting locks flickered, recalibrating again and again as if trying to grasp something that refused to be understood. Because for the first time, the Council was not in control. On the flagship, the commander stood rigid, staring at the tactical display. "Status. Fleet cohesion holding at 83%, an officer replied. "Weapon systems operational." "But—" He hesitated. "Speak. We cannot penetrate their defenses. And our models—" He swallowed. "Our models no longer produce reliable outcomes." That, more than anything, sent a chill through the command deck. The Council did not fight battles it could lose. A new transmission request appeared. Origin, humanity, priority, unrestricted. The commander stiffened. On screen, Elena Voss appeared before them. No uniform of rank, no visible insignia, just a single human, standing calmly against the backdrop of a silent war. For a moment, neither side spoke. Then she began. For 12 generations, Elena said, her voice steady, we chose restraint. Behind her, faint outlines of the human fleet shifted. Massive, controlled, patient. We learned your languages, your laws, your expectations. We followed them, even when they limited us, even when they cost us. She took a slow step forward. Not because we were weak. A pause. Because we remembered what we are when we aren't. On the Council flagship, no one moved. No one interrupted. You studied us, Elena continued. Catalogued our history, our conflicts, our violence. Her expression didn't change, but something sharpened beneath it. And you were right to be concerned. Hale watched from the command center, barely breathing. But you made one mistake, Elena said. You thought that history was something we escaped. Another step forward. It isn't. It's something we carry. Across human space, fleets continued to align. Systems synchronized. The awakening machine, now fully active, ran without error, without delay, without doubt. Humanity was no longer reacting. It was acting. We asked for peace, Elena said quietly, again and again. Not because we couldn't fight. Her eyes hardened, just slightly, but because we knew exactly what it would mean if we did. The Council commander found his voice. This conflict can still end, he said. Withdraw your forces. Stand down your weapons. We will. No, Elena said. Not louder, not harsher, just final. Silence stretched between them. You wanted certainty, she continued. You wanted control. So you chose the one path that guaranteed both would disappear. She gestured, not dramatically, but deliberately. Behind her, the human fleet began to move. Not a charge. Not chaos. A coordinated advance so precise it felt inevitable. This isn't escalation, Elena said. It's consequence. Across the battlefield, human vessels shifted formation, surrounding, isolating, dissecting the Council fleet structure without firing a shot. Lines of retreat, cut off. Command chains, disrupted. Every move calculated before it happened. Hale exhaled slowly. We're not destroying them. Elena's voice echoed softly through the command channel. No, she said. We're ending the war. The Council commander watched as his tactical display transformed, from a battle into a collapse. And for the first time in his long career, he understood something with absolute clarity. They had not started a war. They had triggered a response. Elena looked into the camera one last time. Her voice, when she spoke, carried across every channel, every system, every world listening. We gave you peace, she said. You chose war. A breath. Calm. Certain. At last. Her gaze didn't waver. You've given us a reason. And in that moment, humanity became exactly what it had spent centuries trying not to be. Not out of anger, not out of hatred, but out of purpose. And that made it far more dangerous than anyone had ever imagined.